to take too much time because, whenever me and Tosso get together, it's like there's a lot. There's a lot. I feel like there's a lot to break down and compartmentalize. Or what's the opposite of compartmentalize? Discompartmentalize? I don't know. I'm making up a new word. But yeah, so Toso is a friend, first of all. Toso is a great friend, a great person. I love the way that he's so free and the way that he's so himself, unapologetically. And I met him online, on Instagram. I started following him, started seeing his content and the stuff that he was putting out, and I was just so taken by his word, and how he could join things together, and he had that Chicago sort of edginess to him, and rawness, and we got together. He came and did a show for us, on for our show at the Notting Poetry Festival. It was great, and I got so much love for Toso. He's one of them brothers that you really just want to see win, and do well, and I really can't wait to see where he goes next, what he's going to do, what he has for us. And also, I want you guys also to get to know him a bit better, get to know his path, and hopefully you guys get to see a little bit of the person that lies behind the words, and the Instagrams, and yeah. But yeah, without further ado, I hope he's ready. I'm gonna introduce Toso to you guys. Let me see if he's ready to come in. Let's wait for Mr. There he is. Hey,
Ooh,
bro.
yeah, baby. What's
Hey,
good? How you doing, Hil?
I'm
Thanks for
doing
having me.
great, man. How you doing? You still
Man,
in
I have to stand up. My chair is too low. This is like I got you on my what you might call it, like ledge right now, and it's like
right,
if I
right.
sit down I'm too low, and if I stand up I'm too high. I might have to do
We
like a
can
half
just
squat.
about
We'll
see
figure it
ahead.
out. We'll figure it out. But yeah, man, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for coming. Obviously, like you've already, I feel like you're already part of the Fluent and Bow family. As I said, like I already regard you as a good friend. You have so much, it's so much of yourself to give. You're so full on, with everything that you do,
Mm.
whether it's your friends or the things your love for God, and your love for poetry, for music. You really full on, and you put your full self always, in these things. And I really look up to you when it comes to stuff like that. Just the way that you are, your unapologetic self. I think it's something that not a lot of people are able to be like that, or strive to be like. I don't know the reasons, but I just, yeah, that
It's
that way you are
lonely, bro. It's a lonely
is
road
it
being
is a
unapologetic.
lonely.
It's
It's
so
easy,
like
it's easy,
that.
but you do it so well, man. And
Yeah, I
like,
love it.
and
Thank you.
and I hope you are never put in a position where you need to change that, because I
Mm.
think that's the essence of what you are, and is a part of yourself that it should be nurtured, not held back.
Yeah, I
That makes
appreciate that.
sense.
I appreciate that.
But
Uh,
yeah, anyway, I'll let you just give a little introduction to the people that don't know you or have
for
not heard
sure.
about you. Just a
Um,
little bit about like what where you from. Obviously, talk a little about you were born here in London. You went and live in what's is Chicago,
Chi-town.
Chi-town,
Yeah.
Windy City.
Yeah, baby. So yeah, as Hill said, man, I we met online a little bit. We had a little back and forth. I was able to connect with him at his Nottingham Poetry Festival event. That was super live. We also had that BBC interview
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
together with Ethel
yeah,
on
yeah,
her
yeah,
show. So that was really cool. But yeah, just a brief introduction, I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I like to condense ideas into words that help people connect with themselves. And so ultimately, I'm on this journey of life too. I'm still trying to figure out who the hell I am. And so I think poetry is an avenue to realize, right? In the sense of, you know, the to recognize and to realize who we are on this journey. And so born in London, went to the States, lived there for most of my life. I just came back in 2019. And it was really after a breakdown in everything, really. I just had a whole life smacking me upside the head moment, and I needed to hit a hard reset. So I was like, all right, I'm going back to the UK, gonna figure this thing out on my own, do like the solo dolo thing. So I came out here and just started kind of, you know, recalibrating essentially. And so that's when a lot of the writing started going, a lot of the, you know, and a lot of the stuff wasn't really performance based. It was just, you know, in my notes on my phone, right? Like I didn't go out and do much with it. But then I just, you know, I started thinking about, look, maybe some of these words could be shared. I went to a few open mics and I got a lot of good feedback. And it was just something where I was like, okay, maybe I could do this in a way that's beneficial. As you said, I can be somewhat abrasive in some of my content. And I think part of it is I'm a big believer in being genuine, but also doing so in love. And so I think that there's this fine line you have to almost, you know, straddle where you're trying to tell people the truth and tell them things that maybe they don't want to hear, but also behind that you want them to know that this is filtered through love. It's not something where I'm trying to denigrate you. It's something where I'm trying to give you another perspective, so maybe we can come together on something bigger. So ultimately, that's kind of my journey and my story, man. I'm just a kid from Chicago trying to make his way in this big bad world, bro. So I appreciate you having me on. This is a beautiful space, and hopefully we can get some good words in.
Yeah, man. I mean, the whole point of sort of why I do this IG live show is to. There's a lot of people out there, right, that feel, oh, you know, I'm not ready, or
my boy, what's up, bro?
You know, I'm not ready. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Am I even any good? You know, they are going through the pace a lot. And what I found for this series is that a lot of the things that us creatives go through are very similar. You know, we kind of stumble and go and sort of we become our own sort of barriers in a way. And I always make, you know, I make a lot of questions, and I want to dissect everything in sort of stages. So before I get to that, I want to get to, you know, why poet? When was the moment where you felt poetry? Why poetry? Were you like, did you start off in poetry and then you led into rap, hip hop music, or was it the opposite? Was it rap, hip hop music that sort of led you to poetry, and you kind of
good question.
Your poet, because your poetry is very, it kind of bridges the line between hip hop, rap,
kind of spoken word, kind of rhythmic.
Rhythm, I feel like is very well placed in that sort of middle line. So what was it that what created your style? What led you to start putting words in that way? What was the day that you say, you know what, this is what I'm doing?
You know what? It might be there's this spoken word artist. His name is Propaganda, or he goes by Prop Hip Hop on the socials. And he had this one video that he put out called it was just called Gospel, and he was just kind of going through his faith and why he believed what he believed, and the way that he used words almost like paintbrushes. It just made me realize there's another level to this. I've always been a writer, but most of my writing was more in like the technical side and communicating ideas in a way that was, okay, these are the technical bits of information you need, I'm trying to convey. And that was like something completely different because, you know, just rich with metaphor and similes and things that connect different ideas in ways that make you think. And so I was like, because there's something about poetry that makes people have to pause and think
Yeah.
about a few of those connections. And that thinking process is where the idea actually drives home. If you notice, like when you're reading a textbook, all the information is in there, but you don't really, it's not like something where you're in deep thought about how you're going to understand this thing. You just kind of, it's like osmosis, you just get it.
Yeah.
But with poetry, because you have to think about it, it becomes almost your idea. It's like I shoot an idea into your head, and now you're metastasizing and chewing on it. And so now when you put it back into the world, it's a new idea. It's your idea now. It's just maybe I've helped inspire something or click something in your head. So I think that that's a more beneficial way. So when that poem came out and I heard it, I was like, okay, this is a different way to do things. And that was when I was still in Chicago. So I started going to some open mics around there. I met a few people, and that was something where I was like starting to get into a space where there's a lot of, Chicago is just like artistically, there's just so much talent, right? Yeah. And so you got folks from all different walks doing all types of things. And I was a nerd growing up, right? 4 eyes. Like I had the glasses my whole life. I was never a cool kid, so I couldn't be a rapper. Like I never thought that was in me, right? And so I was like, okay, I could be a poet. And so it really came from that angle. And then as I started performing and people saying there's a little bit of a rhythmic element to it, I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Why not? And so I linked up with a gentleman at your event, actually, and just started trying to make some music with it. So maybe at the end of this, I'll just preview a little bit of what we got coming. But yeah, I think it started with the words, just like ideas, and then it kind of molded into this creative aspect of how can I make these words trigger something in your brain to where now you can own that idea and then maybe make something even better than I can, or something new, or some new perspective that I hadn't even considered. Because that's what art kind of is to me. It's like you put your life out there and then people can criticize it, but then they could also create something. And when that co-creation happens, that collaboration effort, that's when you start having that magic, bro. Like everybody is starting to feel what is being said, but then they're also saying things into it. It just becomes this beautiful mosaic of ideas. And I think that that's almost the goal for poetry, is to pull people into that mosaic instead of just being on the outside just looking. It's like, come on, bro, like you got something to say too. So I think that's what kind of brought me into the space.
Yeah, I always say, like, for me, poetry is like looking at Salvador Dali painting, and you're there just staring for hours, trying to understand, why did this man paint elephants with eyes?
Why is that clock looking like
that?
Right.
Humans? Why is that clock melting? Why is, you know what I mean? And for me, poetry has always been about that. Is mostly about, for me, it's been a vehicle to kind of like, I've never been the type of kid that like just comes out, and says things, or, I've always been very careful with, I've always cared too much about people. Oh, I don't want to hurt this person, so I'm going to say this way. And so poetry has always been a way where I can hide bits of my real self within it. And then it's for people to try. Yeah, like code. Yeah. And then it's for people to try and look at the painting and ask the question, why did it put that word? What does that word mean?
Like that.
What is the deep meaning in that word? And for me, whenever people are interpreting my poetry, or or my words, or did you mean that? It always captivates me. It always captivates me what they can come up with, because it reminds me of me looking at a Salvador Dali painting. And so for me, poetry is art, man.
Yeah,
like, hands down.
For sure.
And this is why, like, I refuse to translate my Portuguese poems, or I refuse to translate. I refuse to tell people this is what this poem means, because I don't ask Salvador Dali to tell me what he meant in his paintings. He's leaving.
Once you describe a thing, the magic is gone. Right?
Exactly.
Like you gotta, that's part of the experience.
And so, yeah, what you said there about being a mosaic, and it's perfect for me, because that's exactly what poetry is for me. Is a vehicle of expression, but it's not up to me to tell you how I feel. it's up to you to try to decipher how I feel, how what I meant, what my ideas are, what my thoughts are. And yeah, man. But anyway, I want to go to. I feel like I have so much that I want to dissect. Another thing that I'm very like sort of curious is like I want to know how it felt for you to obviously leave Chicago, come all the way back to the UK, somehow in the UK go to London, and then somehow make your way up to this little city in the East Midlands called Nottingham.
Yeah.
What was that like to you? Obviously, you know, being from Chicago, being used to
Yeah.
a different scenery, knowing a different set of people, to coming all the way to England, you
Yeah.
know, a country that obviously you were born here, but you know, you don't, you when you didn't grow up here, so there's a lot of things that you still would have had to get used to. How
Yeah.
was that for you? Well, how was that challenge?
Man, it was definitely a challenge, but it's a beautiful one. It's like when you go out for a journey or an adventure. I'm a big fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, and the Lord of the
Mm.
Rings, right? Like when
Yeah, yeah, me too,
going
man.
out for that. When you go out for that adventure, man, you can't pre-plan everything. You just got to take that first step, right? And so for
Yeah.
me, that was what it was. I landed in Brighton in 2019, not knowing what the hell I was going to do. I had like $300. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I just kind of started trying to make my way, finding little jobs here and there, made my way up to London. Did a little internship at a radio station in Stoke-on-Trent. It's like a small place in the middle of nowhere. And then I made my way up to working at a local college in Nottingham. So that was where I was for the last year.
Mm.
Now, actually, I'm in Swansea. You can't really see much, but like if you look way in the back, there's like an ocean back there.
Yeah, yeah,
From the beach back there. But now I'm it's essentially like connect the dots in a weird way. It's like trying to
yeah,
figure out who I am by going different places, but at the same time, like I'm still, you know, it's me doing the journey. Sometimes it's like you want to run away from a place, but you can't run away from yourself, right? And so
yeah,
it's like, what is the consistent element or theme throughout all of these places? Now I can sort of try to triangulate what is the reality about who Tasso is, about who Zen is, about what I'm trying to
mm,
accomplish on this plane, and I think ultimately, bro, it was just one of them things where it's like journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, right? And so you just
yeah. I
step,
love that quote,
it's a
man.
beautiful one,
Love that
and
quote.
you just take it and then go with it, and then
Go.
whatever God has in store for you, He has in store for you. But I'm a
Mm,
big believer. I have faith in the fact that God has a bigger and better plan than anything that I could conceive of, and so believing that means that I can't really over analyze or
mm,
micromanage things. I just got to kind of have, you don't want to be completely clueless, but you want to have some sort of direction. But then after that, you just got to go
yeah.
and then see what happens. And so even coming out here was another step of faith of, all right, let's see what they got for me out here and figure it out as we go.
Mm,
Ultimately, it's just that journey, man, that journey of life and that journey of figuring out who we are. It's a beautiful thing. It's also a scary thing sometimes, but the
mm.
more you lean into it, the less fear there is. It's just like you begin to realize that there was nothing really to fear all along. But if you just stay on the outside looking at what potentially could happen, you'll always have that anxiety about, you know, what could have been or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's just kind of trying to cut that out.
Yeah, I always say, you know, every time in my life I've put myself in an uncomfortable situation,
That's
right?
it.
And I came out of it, I've always became a better person than when I started. And there's always an element of fear.
Yeah.
And people look at fear sometimes negatively, but I don't think it's so negative because I think fear can only be negative when you don't have the courage to confront it. But I think when you're presented with fear and you confront it, you evolve.
Yeah.
So for me, every time I've been uncomfortable, every single situation, I've become better than I was before. So much so that
Yeah.
now I almost purposely kind of push myself into uncomfortable situations just to see
Yeah.
who am I gonna be at the end of this. You
They
know,
say a
maybe I'll
comfort zone
maybe I'll
is a
fail.
beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there.
Exactly. Exactly. And,
So,
and and that's the thing. I think for me now, at this stage where I am in life, and also ultimately is one of the reasons why fluent in both even became a thing, is because it's me kind of telling myself, oh, I can't do this, I can't do it,
Yeah.
but then still doing it, and then
Do it, bro. Just do it.
yeah,
That's it.
and
Just step.
it was my
It could
friend
be two
Chris
people in
was
this mug. We gonna do it.
exactly,
That's the beauty of it, man.
and it was my friend Chris, like literally, he said, yeah, man, just do it. I'm like, bro, I got like 2 weeks to do this. He's like, so
Yeah.
just do it.
Just do it.
If it's not good, then it's not good. But
Yeah.
you'll never know.
That's
And you know,
that's the mantra, man. Honestly, I think if more people had that mindset of just going for it, like if it fails, it fails, but you learn something along the way. It's like there's nothing to be embarrassed about for trying. Like what I think it was
exactly.
ASAP. I saw like a video, a clip or so. He's like, why are you dogging him for trying? Like trying is what we're supposed to be doing. And so
Yeah.
ultimately, I always have respect for people who put themselves out there. They can look goofy as a mug, but I'm gonna be there. Yeah, because that's ultimately what we're supposed to be doing, man. Like I don't. It's like people that like stay in the corner and like just watch or like don't have anything to add. It's like I want them to come into the game
Yeah.
too and be
Yeah.
like, "Yo, let's have fun, man. Like it's not there's nothing scary out here, bro. Like we have the power. It's the people that have the power. When we keep pretending that it's like some other thing dictating everything, that's when we fall into these traps of, you know, thinking of ourselves as less than or trying to follow these weird rules that it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, ain't no rules, man. Just do it. So
Just
I
do it.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, like before we sort of be amazed with your art and what you have for us,
Stop.
I always ask this from this in a sense. There's always two questions that I always make sure to ask. The first one I already asked was how did you go into this, right? But the second one that I always ask is what were the challenges for you to in in the sense of your art, you know, right? So in sense of poetry, in the sense of music, whatever it is being created, what were the biggest challenges that you found in your way?
You know what? For me, bro, I'm somebody who I struggle sometimes with consistency and I struggle with the planning part of things. And so I can be very off the cuff and sometimes that can come off as being unserious. But the truth is that I the way my brain works, it's kind of a disheveled mess, honestly. Like if you can see my room, it's a very accurate representation. Like I'm trying to get that more in line.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the biggest struggle for me is just getting that level of consistency because once you start doing it consistently and it just becomes a part of your routine, then it's easy. But before that part, it's almost like that, like, you know, you're trying to get that momentum up and trying to do the thing. But it's ultimately it's just like getting out of my own head and just getting into the work. Like when you get into that flow state and you're just doing the thing, then that's when it's beautiful. That's when you're not worrying about things. But when you're
Yeah.
like on the outside looking in and you're trying to figure out how to figure out, it's like that's when you're just like overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to, you know, put this place over here and this place over here, and then you just it's like paralysis of analysis, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
overanalyze so much that you don't make a move. And I think for me, I just need to get out of that space and into the space where I'm just flowing and creative and able to just see something and write something or see something and say something and see something, draw something, make a beat, find something that inspires this or whatever. Like it's like this continual flywheel of creativity. It's like we have infinite inspiration in this world. So I just want to be able to take that and condense it and then make something meaningful. Like I think that's what we're here for. It's like as human beings, we are these conscious, like observing machines that are able to see the universe and then make sense of it. And so even things that don't make sense on the surface, we have the capacity to take that and make something beautiful from it. And if we're able to do that consistently and more people are doing that, there's this beautiful Japanese phrase called kintsugi where it's like a broken plate. They bind it together with this golden adhesive.
Mm-hmm.
So the final product is actually more beautiful than the original.
Yeah.
And people pay a lot of money for these broken plates that are, you know, sealed together with this gold glue because it has a story now. Like that, those
Yeah.
fractures, those cracks tell a story. And so when we look at our fractured selves as part of a bigger story, then we don't feel as embarrassed about them. We actually want to show them. We're like, hey, look at my scars, bro. I got this one over here. I got this one over here from this time.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, that's crazy. You went through that? Then it's like, yeah, man. Now let me show you something else. Like, that's how it should be, bro. Like, we should be sharing these things so that we can be broken together, and that way we can do something dope with this time we got. So, yeah, I say that.
Yeah, man, that's great. Yeah, sorry, just one last question.
Go ahead.
So recently I've been doing these workshops curated by a poet friend of mine called Bridie. And we had a workshop, and one of the workshops, you had to choose two cards, and it was random questions. One of the questions that was on the card was, one of the cards that I saw that I found really interesting was, if you could be sat, so imagine you sat down with your younger self, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? Well, like, what
Stop
words of
caring so much
advice?
about other people's opinions, bro. I think that's what I was saying, because I'm still in that space of trying to. It's like you naturally want to please people. I'm a natural people pleaser, bro. I want people to like me, but it's like you got to get over that, because ultimately that's like a cage. Is other people's perceptions of you becomes a cage, and so when you're thinking like, oh, I want to be seen as this, that, or the third, you begin acting in ways that aren't really genuine for you. So I would tell my younger self, like, yeah, you should be a rapper, man. Fuck all them, dog. I was so like tiptoe around people's feelings and everything that I had no like real power behind what I was trying to communicate. And I think that as I've gotten older, I've learned to sort of put those to the side. But there's a fine line. It's a balance, right? It's a balancing act between being an empathetic, good human being, and then also not letting other people's ideas of you encroach on your own ideas of yourself. Like I'm a big believer in like it comes off as egotistical, but I just believe in what God's put in me. So it's like I think you should believe in what God's put in you too. Like we should all feel like we are the goats respectively in whatever avenue that we've chosen.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I would tell that younger Tasso, like, hey, you that dude, bro. You are him. Like, stand on that and begin to act as if that's the case. And we'll see where that goes. So
Yeah, man. Thanks for that, man. That was a personal question for me. I was just interested to know.
for sure.
But yeah, so what you got for us today then?
I got a couple, bro. You actually just inspired one. I'm gonna do this one. It's a shorter one called Recalibrate.
Mm.
And this is just about essentially figuring out